Alright, we want to get started with our first Access exercise using the Access textbook. This textbook uses the word tutorial instead of chapter, and so at the end of the first tutorial, page AC 45, is an exercise entitled Review Assignments. And what you'll find is that the end of every chapter has an exercise entitled Review Assignments. And so it's consistently named. So for example, if you turn to AC 105, so page 105 of the textbook, you'll see Review Assignments exercise there too, and so on. So at the end of every chapter, the first exercise that you'll see is called Review Assignments. Now the reason that they do that is because what you're going to do in chapter 1 here is create a database from scratch, and it'll be very simple to start. And then in chapter 2 you'll reopen the database that you created in chapter 1 and then build on it. It works the same way for case problem 4, for case problem 1, and so on. So every exercise in this textbook requires that you start with a file and then you work through that same file in the successive chapters. So in this particular one, tutorial 1, at the end of the chapter is page 45. First thing you have to do is create a blank database. So Start, Programs, Office 2013, Access. Once Access launches, you'll see some options for using some template files, but we're going to create a blank database, which is the second option here. So just a single click there. A dialog box will pop up and just basically ask, what do you want to name the file and where do you want to save it to. If you downloaded the files already, then you should have an Access 1 folder somewhere on your hard drive, your flash drive, or so wherever it is that you saved your files. So what we want to do is navigate to that file location. So I'm going to click the Browse button here, and I put mine on the desktop. So desktop, and then there's my Access 1 folder. Inside that folder you'll see case 1, 2, 3, 4 and review. The review folder is what we're going to use for this particular video. So we'll go in there, and there's already a database in there. We're going to reference that a little bit later on, but for our purposes now we've designated where we want to save the file to, and now we just simply have to name it. So we'll just type vendor here and then click OK. Once you have the file name and the location, then go ahead and click Create, and Access launches and it comes up with a default table name of Table 1. Our job is going to be to rename this table eventually and add a bunch of fields across the top here. So step 1 was to create the file name, which we just did. Step 2 is to change the very first field name. Currently it says ID. You want to change that to supplier ID. So just simply double click on that and just type supplier ID. And notice that I did run the words together in camel case, supplier ID, and you always want to do that. You don't want spaces in your field names. So use camel case, supplier ID in this case, and then the next thing they want us to do is to change the data type. So if your cursor's still flashing sitting here on the supplier ID field, and you're on the Fields tab up here, you'll see data type here says auto number. That's the default data type for any time that you create a blank table in Access. It's going to come up with a default field of ID with a auto number data type. To get that so you can change it so it's not grayed out, go ahead and click down here where it says new, and then up here where it says auto number, it becomes active, and you can change it to short text like that. Okay, so once you have that, then you're going to proceed on to creating the remainder of the fields, which shows up in steps 3 and 4 and so on. We'll come back and do those steps next.